Hello, everyone, and welcome. I want to discuss something that we have previously briefly touched on in class, and that is the future of Disney Plus and some of the things that are going on with Disney Plus and some questions that I have regarding it. So, what really kind of drives this conversation now is recently it was announced the Marvel shows that were produced by Netflix and on Netflix they are leaving Netflix on March 1st. And so the middle of the month, they are expected to be added to Disney Plus in Canada, I believe, under probably the star heading under Disney Plus in Canada. That's led to speculation that soon afterwards in the United States, we may see those Marvel shows that were produced by Netflix, which are a little grittier, than the MCU proper movies and shows that we have on Disney Plus. We may see those either on Disney Plus or Hulu in the United States. And so that brings up this interesting question as to an observation that there is more mature content being added to Disney Plus. And we're seeing that in the United States as well. Internationally, because the Star brand is incorporated into Disney Plus in many international markets, we have seen a lot of mature content for the people who want that general entertainment on their streaming service. So shows that are kind of on the same level that you would think of on a Netflix or Amazon Prime or Apple TV Plus. We don't have that in the United States right now because Disney Plus and Hulu operate as separate entities, although you have seen the Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus bundle. But so there's more mature content being added to Disney Plus in the United States. And it also leads to an interesting conversation about what happens or what's the relationship between Disney Plus and Hulu in the United States, where internationally you have Disney Plus, you have Star. Star is included as a sixth brand on the Disney Plus streaming service. We don't have that in the United States because Hulu is a separate entity. And the history of Hulu was when Netflix really came on the market and was such a disruptor to the market, several studios worked together to form Hulu and start Hulu. And so ultimately, major studios had different shares, different amounts of shares into Hulu. But when Disney purchased Fox in 2019 and that deal was finalized, they ended up with a majority share of Hulu. And the other major studio that still has share in Hulu is the Comcast Corporation, who is NBC Universal, and they also have their Peacock, their streaming service now. And that shortly after the Fox acquisition, the Walt Disney Company and Comcast Corporation worked out a deal where Disney was going to have full creative control over Hulu. So they were deciding what was on Hulu, and then they would be producing Hulu originals, and NBC was supposed to help with producing Hulu originals if they wanted to receive the most money at the end of the deal. And in 2024, the deal works out to where both companies could either force the other company to buy or sell their shares. So the Walt Disney Company could force Comcast to sell the remaining shares they have in Hulu. Comcast could also force Disney to purchase Comcast remaining shares of Hulu. Now, there's a baseline number of about 27 billion that is worth in 2024. But then on top of that, there's a percentage of how much Hulu is worth at that time. And that is the money that Disney would have to pay Comcast in order to have full control over Hulu. There's speculation at that point that maybe you would have the Walt Disney Company trying to either rebrand Hulu as Star, because Star is such a big brand internationally. They could also just leave it Hulu, because the brand Hulu does have cachet in the United States. And an interesting observation that someone told me recently is there already is a streaming service called Stars in the United States. So maybe they want to keep it Hulu, so there's not as much confusion there. But eventually Hulu, whether it's Hulu or Stars, would be integrated onto the Disney Plus streaming service, along with probably ESPN Plus. Because what you don't want in streaming service is for someone to have to leave your streaming service to watch something else. Because a perfect example of that would be if someone's watching Disney Plus and then they decide they want to watch something on Hulu. Well, they close out of Disney Plus. They have every intention of going over to Hulu, but maybe in browsing through the apps, they stumble across something on Netflix or Apple TV Plus that they remember they wanted to watch, and all of a sudden the Walt Disney Company is missing out on that customer streaming opportunity because they had to change platforms. So that's the expectation, is that eventually in the United States, possibly we would see on Disney Plus, we would see 7 headers on the top of Disney Plus, the 5 that we have right now, Disney, Pixar, National Geographic, Lucasfilm, and Marvel. And then we would also see Hulu or Star, however they want to word that and call that, and then potentially ESPN Plus. Now, what's really interesting, and I have a lot of questions about this, is we've talked about how the Walt Disney Company and Comcast Corporation have this deal running through 2024 about Hulu. But there's also a aspect of that deal that right now, or at the end of 2021, early 2022, Comcast Corporation had the opportunity to try to exercise and negotiate the right to pull NBC library content from Hulu. Now, and there are reports that they are negotiating that right now. It's possibly even being finalized right now. Roger Palmer from What's on Disney Plus has done some really good commentary and reporting on this front. And so they're negotiating it right now, apparently close to making an announcement. And my question is this an opportunity, or has the Walt Disney Company broached the idea with Comcast Corporation that they can do this deal early now and essentially allow Comcast Corporation to pull their library content from Hulu to put it on Peacock for a lower price, with the understanding that maybe the two companies could work out the Hulu share deal right now. So in other words, maybe Comcast pays a lower price for their library content to move it from Hulu to Peacock, and in turn, Disney then can pay a lower price for the remaining shares of Hulu than they would have to pay if the deal went through 2024. I think if the Walt Disney Company they're in negotiations with Comcast Corporation, I think, I would wonder if that has come up, because it would potentially be a pretty good move for both companies, trying to get more of their content, their library content, on their streaming services. And obviously for the Walt Disney Company, where then they can integrate everything into Disney Plus. If you want more information on this, because there are people who have talked about this more than I have, who know much more about this than I have. If you want more information, listen to class number 15, where I spoke to Sean Gerber, and especially class number 39. Sean Gerber from MCU Fan Show joined again to talk exclusively about the streaming services and competition in streaming services. And also, I mentioned Roger Palmer from What's on DisneyPlus.com, and he's done some really, really good commentary on this. Class number 34, he spoke with me about What's on Disney Plus. And then class number 64, recently, we had a discussion about Disney Plus at 2 years old, and we got into some of the aspects of the Hulu Comcast Disney deal. And so I hope this is something that has possibly piqued your interest. And if it has, and you have any feedback or any thoughts on it, please let me know. This will be, we'll have more discussions about this in the class and with people that visit with the class. It'll be very fun to see where it goes, very interesting to see what the future holds for these companies and all of these streaming services. So with that, thank you very much for watching or listening, and see you next time.